Evening, boys. This is Dr. Infinity, and welcome to White Pill Media.
Well, come on, men. 3 cheers for her grace. Hip, hip.
Hooray! Hooray! Hip, hip. Hooray! Hip, hip. Hooray!
I'm going to be reviewing a book called Bandit Country. It's by Toby Harnden. It's about the IRA and South Armagh. This is focusing on the Troubles. I wanted to give this book a shot because I knew a little bit about the Troubles. I'm an American, but I knew a little bit about the Troubles. I knew that the IRA bombed some places and etc. You know, I probably just got a basic briefing during history courses in school, right? I knew it was between the IRA and I knew it was between the British. So I knew that, and I also knew Bobby Sands was a hunger striker and he died in prison. That's basically everything I ever knew about it, so I was just kind of curious to get some more information on it. Toby Harnden, he sounded like a good author. He is British, so initially I was a little worried that he would be somewhat biased towards the British side, but I think the book is pretty nuanced. You know, this is someone who has no dog in the fight, but I thought it was pretty nuanced, and he goes through stuff that the IRA did, something that the RUC, which is the Royal Ulster Constabulary. So he does that, and I think he does a pretty good back and forth. I don't think he really favors one side over the other, but he sounds like a pretty badass journalist. He was imprisoned when he was in Rhodesia. I don't know what for. You know, he got prosecuted in Britain for protecting confidential sources, you know, and he just sounds like a cool guy. So I'm just going to get right into the book. I'm probably just going to flip around through pages that I've marked and that I've highlighted and bookmarked. I'm just kind of firing from the hip from this book. If you're just kind of interested in a book on the Troubles, and this is just the IRA and South Armagh, which is one of the 6 counties in Northern Ireland, then I think this is great. This is a big recommendation for me. I will say this isn't a page-turner type of book. I'm more into historical nonfiction. So a lot of the books on my shelves are Rome, Napoleon, that type of thing. So I really did enjoy this, but it is kind of a drier text. There are definitely more intense kind of chapters when he focuses on violent incidents with whichever paramilitary on whichever side, you know, there are those. It's definitely it takes a little while to get through some of the pages, but really good overall, really informative. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I recommend it. The book has 12 chapters, and you know, I'm not gonna necessarily go chapter by chapter like that, but I'm just going to, hop around to some of the stuff I've highlighted. He does cover a lot of, on such and such date at such and such time, this officer was, killed in, so I'm just going to kind of cover the bigger stuff that I found. The book covers a long, long history of just kind of rebellion in Ireland against British rule, and then more specifically, clashes between Catholic and Protestants, and this has gone back hundreds of years. You know, this has gone back several hundred years, so the whole IRA and Protestant thing, that's not new. This has been going on for a long time, and this is just the newest face on it, but I found that interesting and pretty enlightening for me, where it's just I don't know why these people are fighting, and something I didn't fully get, and I guess this is just me being kind of stupid about it, but I thought well, aren't the Ulster Scots Scottish, you know, and the Irish are Irish, so I thought they would be against the British, you know. I thought Ireland and Scotland were kind of against the British, but I guess it's more of on a religious side, and I guess the Ulster Scots identify more with the United Kingdom than with Scotland or being Celtic, you know what I mean? But that was kind of a little strange for me, but I guess it's more of a religious thing rather than a huge ethnic thing. Oh, okay. So this is chapter 4. It's page 91, and they are talking. So they have set up a bunch of watchtowers in Northern Ireland, where a lot of some of the Irish civilians that are pretty opposed to the British government and who they see as an occupying force, they are 100% against them when they start setting up like watchtowers so they can like be more effective and have like greater surveillance here. Anyways, so this is describing an incident on the 12th of November, 1992. We have this watchtower, and then there's this tractor on the road, and this tractor starts backing in reverse towards the watchtower. The muck spreader came to a stop. It shot out streams of petrol, dousing the Sanger from top to bottom. 17 seconds later, a small gunpowder explosion ignited the petrol. A 30-foot-high fireball fueled by an estimated 1,100 gallons of petrol engulfed the structure for a full 7 minutes, sending the temperature inside soaring. So there's 4 people inside, and they start radioing for help, fearing that they're going to be that they're either going to suffocate or being cooked alive, and they take turns standing in the shower to cool down. And the lives of the 4 grenadiers were saved by Sergeant David Adkins, who grabbed the keys to a Saxon armored personal carrier and threw them to a driver. I screamed at the driver to ram the tractor away from the Sanger. No one dies and everyone's alive, but like this was like kind of fucking crazy to me, where I thought like, okay, the IRA, like they shoot at like the British guys, like assault rifles. I know they're snipers and all that and like bombs, but I just can't imagine like launching a fucking attack on like a watchtower and shit. Like that was like really crazy to me, and that probably sounds like really ignorant if you're from like Ireland or England, but I'm like, holy fuck, I didn't realize they were like that level of organization where they like can commit assaults on like fortifications. You know what I mean? I thought it was a lot less organized than that. Here we are on page 97, and it's June 1924. 4 Catholics, Peter Quinn, Peter McGenty, and brothers John and Thomas Riley, were taken from their homes at Alt Nave near Brestbrook and shot dead by the roadside. Many of the killings of Catholics were believed to be carried out by beast specials, who gained access to their victims by pretending to carry out police raids on their homes. Quasi like military reserve. But anyways, this is in 1921, where there's like this sectarian violence has been going. Yeah, you know, this isn't brand new. Like when this is happening in like the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, this is not new. This has been going on for a really long time. And he really hammers that home. And I like that, just being shown like examples from like Irish history. The British government ends up calling in the SAS, which is the Special Air Service. There are a lot of like acronyms and all that stuff throughout the book, and like I'm not really familiar with any of them, so it was a lot for me to kind of catch up with, but it worked out okay. He usually does, the author does a pretty good job of like explaining stuff, but I'm like, who are these guys? And I guess they're the like Green Berets of the British military, or like Army Rangers or something, but like the elite guys that you would send in. So I guess that's how bad things got in Northern Ireland for like Britain at the time, where they felt that these guys were justified. On page 117, he describes an event in April 1976 where the SAS shot a guy called Peter Cleary, who was a Irish Republican volunteer, right? He describes the killing as bad, where the soldiers report one thing going on, where Cleary ends up being killed when he's arrested, or after he's been arrested, and the autopsy says another thing. So he's just like, yeah, he's pointing out that not everyone on the British side is playing like fair, if that makes sense. Like they're also doing like sectarian violence, and they're just kind of fueling this cycle. You know what I mean? Where they're fighting fire with fire, but I'm never going to justify arresting a guy and, you know, having him tied up and then, you know, just murdering him. On December 19th, 1975, 3 Catholics died in a loyalist gun and bomb attack on Donnelly's Bar. And then, you know, there are a few more like other incidents where some Protestant paramilitaries have shot and killed some Irish Catholics. Okay, so this is December 19th, 1975. And the worst event in this book that I found was which comes up on January 5th, 1976. And I had never heard of this as an American. Never. But I thought this was like really, really horrible. It's called the Kingsmill Massacre. And this happens the evening after the Reevy brothers were killed. And the Reevy brothers were loyalists shot dead 3 of the Reevy brothers who were believed by local Protestants to be IRA sympathizers. Okay? So this happens the day after. So there's this bus transporting these workers home, right? We have 11 Protestants on the bus and 1 Catholic on the bus. And the bus, they see 12 armed men ahead blocking the road, and one of them's waving a red torch. So they assumed that they were being stopped and searched in an army checkpoint. So the men filed out and lined up against the side of the minibus. It was only when the name of Richard Hughes, the only Catholic, was called out and he was ordered to step forward that they began to realize that something was wrong. Walter Chapman feared that they had been stopped by loyalist gunmen and squeezed the hand of Hughes, who was standing next to him, and whispered that he should stay where he was. But Hughes responded when the order was repeated, and the leader of the gunmen told him to get down the road and don't look back. So as Hughes is walking away, the IRA gunmen turn on the 11 workmen and cut them down from bullets. One of the worst incidents in the books. I think it's the worst one. I know like a lot of the bombings were pretty bad, but this is just a new level of like sectarian violence. Does that make sense? Just 11 guys on a bus. They're on the way home after work. And I know this is like kind of a faggy thing to say, but I don't know how else to describe it, where if I was like a Protestant in Northern Ireland at this time, I would join up with one of their paramilitaries. No fucking question. I would join up and I'd want revenge. I'd want to kill a lot of Catholics. No question. And, you know, if I was one of the Irish Catholics and some shit like that was happening as well, you know, I would join up for their side. And I know it's like gay and I'm not trying to be like a fence sitter, but I don't know like who you can really side with in situations like this, because you're always going to default like side with your people. You know, when your people are being hurt, you're always going to side with your tribe. Does that make sense? There's one man who survives the attack, and his name is Alan Black. So Alan Black gets taken to a hospital, and there's this Catholic chaplain there, and he came forward and he asked quietly if the injured man was a Catholic so he would know whether to administer the last rites. Black said, "I'm not, but I could do with a prayer anyway." And the priest took the injured man's hands and said the Our Father as he was wheeled into the operating theater. Somehow Black, who had been hit by 18 bullets, survived. And I thought this was like the worst fucking thing I had read, you know, throughout the book. Like, holy shit. Oh, okay. Page 138. In April 1977, there's this guy, McCaughey, along with Sergeant John Weir and 2 loyalist paramilitary, shot dead William Strathern, a Catholic who ran a grocery store in his home village of Ahoghill in County Antrim. He was also prepared to carry out similar actions in South Armagh. So, McCaughey was later convicted of the murder of Strathern, the attack on the Rock Bar, and the kidnapping of a Catholic priest. He served 16 years of a life sentence and then was released from the maze. And the maze refers to this prison. I think that's where Bobby Sands and the Hunger Strikers were held. But yeah, the maze is like this prison in Northern Ireland. You can just like gun down a guy that's just running a grocery store because, you know, maybe he's with the IRA or maybe he has some sympathies towards the IRA. And it's like, yeah, just really crazy stuff. I didn't really care about like Prince Philip, you know, the cousin of the Queen and whatever. Like it's just like whatever. Like I don't think it's like great that he died, but it's just, I don't know. It's not like as impactful to me as like the 10 people being killed in the Kingsmill Massacre. You know, that's not as important. And I will say this in terms of like what people like have a general knowledge of the Troubles and everything. Like everyone can probably like rattle off the name Bobby Sands. That means something, right? Like most people would be able to like say, oh yeah, the Troubles, Bobby Sands. That's what I know. But who is the Protestant Bobby Sands? You know, who is the Protestant Bobby Sands? And I don't fucking know. I think the Kingsmill Massacre is like enough of an impact, but you know what I mean? Like it's not like it hasn't been like focused on, or like there hasn't been like a spotlight on that in comparison to like the hunger strike and stuff like that. You know what I mean? It feels like it's just like something that's written in a book, when I think it's like this really powerful really horrible like events. The IRA trying to get weapons from various countries. They do smuggle in a bunch of weapons from Libya, but also in America, like they're trying to buy like Stinger missiles because the British and their helicopters are really effective at just kind of screwing them up and kind of jamming up their operations. So they end up recruiting this guy called Richard Clark Johnson on page 257. He's a 35-year-old American electronics and defense expert who had worked on the Voyager space probe and space shuttle projects. Johnson was also working for the IRA in some of the most technically advanced projects of the Troubles. And apparently Johnson came up with this like really good idea of using the weather alert radio frequency to trigger IRA bombs. I don't know why that's like such a big deal. I think like the British could like jam IRA like signals so that they couldn't like trigger their bombs, and this was a way around that. I thought so. And he was trying to develop a sophisticated method of bringing down helicopters. He describes Johnson as awkward, unmarried, and with no known friends outside of work. Johnson was a social misfit whose precise motivation for working for the IRA was never established. I think probably just you have this like really smart, like awkward guy, and then there's like, I don't know if like women were involved, but probably like a sense of community or like a sense of like friends. You know, I know that sounds like kind of dumb, but it feels like this is the type of guy that organizations like the IRA would kind of prey on, where he's just no known friends and, you know, easy to like kind of get them. Oh, on page 273, he just mentions the Brighton bombing in 1984. He doesn't elaborate on it, and I had no idea what that was. Apparently it was an attack on members of the British government, and it took place in England, and it killed 5 people. I think they were trying to assassinate Margaret Thatcher, but they didn't. They just killed a few people around her. So, yeah, it's just weird. Like, I can't think of, like, any organization in, like, the United States where, like, they would get, like, close to, like, trying to kill the president, you know? So it's just kind of strange. They bring up, like, some of, like, the graffiti and, like, signs that have been placed up around South Armagh and kind of around the Troubles where... oh yeah, they have these sniper at work signs, which is like, holy shit, where it's like, you know, those are interesting. Like it definitely like grabbed my attention when I was like looking up the book, and it's like, well shit, I want to read this book, you know. Then we get to the breakup between the provisional IRA and the real IRA, and Bobby Sands' sister was a part of the real IRA. She and McKivitt, they end up resigning and forming their own dissident paramilitary group. And these are the guys that are behind the Omar bombing. I believe like 29 people are killed, and like almost all of them are civilian. Or the Omagh bombing on August 15th, where it kills 29 people, and like almost all of them are civilians, I believe. I like the book. I don't think it's optimistic about the future. I think that everyone that supported the Ulster Scots and like the Orange Order and that type of thing is still supporting those groups. Everyone that's on the IRA side supports the IRA, and that's not really going to change. I don't know what would be like better. You know, I don't know. I don't know if like in some areas where it's like heavily nationalistic and Irish and Catholic, like I'm talking 90+%, maybe these areas should be like negotiated with like the Republic of Ireland and given away, since these people don't see them because these people aren't British. You know what I mean? They don't want to be a part of your country. But that's also like a thing where, you know, in the United States, if like any of the states try to like break away and say, hey, we're our own country, like, you know, because we all like love democracy in the West, but we'd shoot everybody. You know, my government would just go in and they'd start killing people if like, yeah, just pick a state and they said, hey, fuck off, America, we're done. So I don't know, like everyone in the West preaches for democracy, but I don't think anyone like actually believes in it. Well, at least the governments don't. The book is good. It's definitely heavy on like historical knowledge, but that's great if you're interested in like kind of just facts, right? It's really good for like facts and whatever. It's not a page turner. It's a slower read, but I like it. I don't think like the orange men and the Catholics are just going to take to the street and they're all going to like dance and be happy. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't know if like some areas in Northern Ireland that are like a small minority of Catholics, if you could like offer to repatriate them to like South Armagh or like somewhere where it's like majority Irish, right? If you could like pay people to move to majority Irish areas and then like the Republic of Ireland takes the majority Catholic areas for some compensation. And then, we just have two distinct countries, but the remaining parts of Northern Ireland would be Ulster Scot Protestant, because I don't know. I really don't know what like the solution is. This is something I've also heard of, like these orange walks, which are like marches. And I'm not against being nationalistic and celebrating your heritage and your culture. I'm 100% not. I think that's really good to keep that up. But from what I've read online, some of these marches, which I had heard about, the Protestants will like march through majority Catholic areas, and it just feels like antagonistic to me. I think it's one thing to march through your own neighborhoods and all that. I think that is all good and fine, but just like forcing other people and putting them in an uncomfortable position, I really don't like that. And I guess I would compare it to like if Americans wanted to celebrate some battle where we beat a bunch of Indians and then we walked through a Native American reservation and then, we were just shocked when the Native Americans really didn't fucking like us. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's like really fucking gay. I don't know if that still goes on, but like I've seen some online where it's like still somewhat like recent, and like I'm not against them marching, but it feels like in some times that they deliberately pick spots to be as antagonistic and like sore winners, just they're sore winners about, hey, we beat you 300 years ago. It's like, okay, I don't really care for that. I'm probably going to have some movie reviews next week, probably a TV show as well, but that's going to be it. It's a good book. It's informative, and it definitely made me open up a bit about kind of how I saw the Troubles, where it's just like, yeah, I know Bobby Sands, and like, yeah, there's some bombing and stuff, but, no, it's like the Kingsmill Massacre, that was very real. That was very like raw and bloody. Good, it let me like kind of get more into the Ulster side of it, where I think I still probably side with the IRA for some stuff, but I'm never going to be like justifying like the murder of civilians. You know what I mean? That's going to be it from me. I thought it was a really good book. And if you have like book recommendations, let me know. I might be a little slow in getting to them. I have a pretty big backlog right now. But I usually do like TV and movie show reviews on this channel. There's some shit posting and some funnier videos. It's not always serious stuff like this.